I've never admitted this to anybody. And so before we get there, we got to understand how we got there. And so I grew up in a military family. My mom and dad, they met in the United States Air Force. And yeah, we traveled a lot when I was a kid. We lived in Utah, we lived in Germany, we lived in Texas. And one of the benefits of the military is not moving. However, one of the benefits is that after 4 years of service, the government will pay for your school. And so this is actually known as the GI Bill. And so once my mom completed her 4 years, she got out and she pursued a career in dental hygiene. And upon graduation, she wanted to move back to her hometown. So at the time we were living in Texas. And the problem, like I said, in the military is that one of the perks isn't moving. The military tells you where to live, not the other way around. And so we had to make a decision. And my dad actually decided to give up his career so we could move back to my mom's hometown. Well, home was a place called Fort Shaw, Montana. And Fort Shaw had 134 people in it, very small. 0 stoplights, 0 gas stations. It had one school that only went to 5th grade. If you wanted to go to 6th grade and up, you had to go to a different town. Literally had more gravel roads than paved roads. My mom ended up finding a job about 20 minutes away, was a town called Great Falls. And she practiced as a dental hygienist for 20 years. But my dad, he had trouble getting a job because he only had one employer his whole life, the US government. My dad grew up in California. And he grew up in the hood. He would tell me stories about how he had to just, fight his way to get to and from school. Yeah, it was tough. It was also tough because his parents, they battled substance abuse problems, right? Drugs, alcohol, all of it. And at 12 years old, his dad passed away. And at 14, his grandma moved him to Omaha, Nebraska to live with her. And at 15, his mom passed away. And so at 17 years old, without parents, he joined the military because that was the only thing that he knew what to do. The one thing that when I was growing up, I really admired about my dad, very persistent, laser focused. When he had something in mind, he figured it out. And you could tell how he figured it out because he just kept going. He would get told no, he would not get the result, and he just kept going. He kept figuring it out. And he didn't have very many friends because he just was very obsessive over the things that he wanted to do. And that trait paid off in this instance because he had trouble getting a job, and then through persistence, he actually found a job through the Air National Guard, which is not active duty military, but he got a job as a civilian up there. And then about 6 months later, he actually got offered an active duty job on this base, which wasn't even on the actual Air Force base. It's only 30 people in the entire base that had this opportunity. And so very fortunate, but he ended up serving 29 years in the United States Air Force and got retired with full benefits. And if you know what full benefits in the military means, is pension, health insurance, you're taken care of, right? And so while I respected my dad a ton, never seriously considered the military. Appreciated the discipline, appreciated the structure, just desired a little bit more freedom in my life. And so instead of getting paid to go to college like my mom, I racked up $30,000 in student loan debts going to college. But my dad never went to college or had any desire. But after I graduated from college, he was like, check out, Logan, if you can actually use my GI Bill. I was like, oh, well, I'll just try. So remember, I'm already graduated college. I go back onto campus and they have a VA center on campus. And I just went in there and started asking questions, and turns out he was right. Yeah. So I already had $30,000 in debt. It was starting to accrue interest. I already consolidated my loans. I got a $30,000 check, just showed my bank account. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Rich. I had never seen more than $1,000 ever in my account before, and all of a sudden I got $30,000. I remember just walking around walking up to the teller, the bank was just what's up? You see that account balance? But the reality was I wasn't really rich because that money was meant to pay off the student loan debt. Couldn't do it. Couldn't control my, I felt rich. So I had to I needed to feel what it actually was like to be rich. Yeah. And so I took a trip to San Francisco. It was my first one, $2,000. I was like, it was a fun trip. And then a month later, it was my birthday. So I was 24 at that time, now I'm 25. And I was like, I deserve a new vehicle. Beautiful, black pickup, leather interior, chromed it out. So nice. Cost 30 grand, put $13,000 down. Had $300 a month payment. So now I was down $15,000 and still had the student loans. And money began leaving faster than it was coming in. And this is where I started to get scared. And this is one of the reasons, guys, that I'm so adamant about not giving people things. This is why. It's because if you get given something, you don't know how to replace it again, right? And so this is a big number, but even giving kids a couple dollars here and there, it's everything needs to be earned so they understand how to get the money back. But at the time, I was a personal trainer at a commercial gym. Again, I just graduated college, exercise science, got a degree. That basically made me a very highly educated personal trainer, right? Which was basically a salesperson. And this was around the time that I was I got the idea to start a business, right? So I was like, money's going away. I gotta make money. So business owners, they're rich, right? Gotta start a business. And so I realized I could never afford to actually start a commercial gym. So a commercial gym is a gym like you guys would walk into, and there's treadmills everywhere, and there's equipment everywhere, and it's 10,000 square feet. Beautiful gyms, right? The equipment alone would cost millions of dollars. And so at the time, CrossFit was actually pretty popular. And if you've ever been to a CrossFit gym, the equipment is like very bare bones, right? And so what I did, I had the idea, I was like, mind you, like I'm still training at this commercial gym. I just adapted my training style to be like I was working at a CrossFit gym, although I was in a commercial gym. I was like, let me just see if this works. And so that's what I did. With all my clients, I only used equipment that you would find inside a CrossFit gym. And after I saw that they could get results and they didn't even notice, they didn't even care, I was like, okay, like they do not value the equipment, they value me, the relationship, they value the result, right? And that's something that can be done without millions of dollars equipment, without $5,000-$10,000 square foot facilities. And so then I spent $5,000 in gym equipment, started my own gym. And so on December 14, 2013, that's when I was officially open for business. $200 in rent, a room not bigger than this, and there was 2 squat racks, bumper plates, dumbbells, and I built what's called a platform, so we could like drop weights on out of wood, and that was it. But now I was down to $10,000 of this GI Build money, and still didn't pay out the student loans. Instead, I pulled the 10 grand out and the bank account to protect myself from not spending it anymore, because once you take money out of the bank, it's harder to spend it. And it laid to rest in a Crown Royal bag under my mattress. And so for the next 3 years, I lived poor. So I didn't have any money in the bank, right? It's all been spent, or it was under my mattress. And those were trying times. Those were trying times. No money, no direction, no support, and no idea if I was ever gonna get there. And Katie was, I believe, the only thing that like kept me going. Like she was the only person rooting for me. And to be fair, she was the only person who knew what I was trying to do. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't share it with my clients. I didn't share it with the world. I didn't share it with my peers. Katie was the only one. And so she was the one who's rooting for me. And then on April 17th, I stumbled upon this guy named Alex Mrosi from a Facebook ad. And he pitched me on his gym launch system, and a system that he had perfected with his gyms. And he even helped others as well with the system. And when he told me the price was 10 grand, right? I was like, yeah, I was just like, I laughed, but as my heart's saying, I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this is like, to me, it was the sign. Like, this is what the 10 grand was for. It was crazy, but I was scared. I was like, that was the last of the money. If that was gone, I had nothing. But really, I would have had still $30,000 of debt and no cash. That's what I would have had. But I did. I believe this was my opportunity. I was like, this is why I had the 10 grand sitting there. It was waiting for like this. So I committed. And then I remember him asking me for my bank information. And I was like, well, the cash is actually in a mattress under my bed. And this was a Saturday. It'll be there on Monday, okay? And then I do remember Alex, I don't know if he chuckled or anything, but I do remember what he said. He was like, I trust you. And so he took my banking information. He said, I'll run it next week. And then he gave me access to his gym launch system that day. This was a Saturday morning. The call was at 8 a.m. I don't know how long it lasted for, but at that moment I was worth negative $30,000 and a pickup that was no longer worth what I bought it for. And I remember driving to the gym to go start implementing this system right away. And I just was starting to cry. And it was so funny. I actually video saved myself driving to the gym because I was like, I believe this was gonna be a life-changing moment, and I lost the video somewhere along the way. But I was crying. I just believed that life was gonna be different. I didn't know how, I didn't know if it was gonna work, but I just knew that that was a commitment point for me. Like something was gonna happen after that. And 30 days later, that 10 grand turned into 50 grand, right? And the investment paid off. Like I found the opportunity to invest in me. And I reinvested that money. And I gave Alex more money because I believed that Alex had more skills that he could teach me. I was like, if you taught me this in 30 days, like what could you teach me after that? One of the skills that I learned from Alex was stacking cash. It was like one of the mantras of that he ingrained in Kid and I's head was like stack cash. Like don't make all this money and just like blow it on stupid shit. Like stack it. And so in my free time, I just immersed myself in taxes and investing and real estate and just was like learning now the second game. What do you do with the money? And Kid and I, we made the decision to just put our money into real estate. At the time, we just like, that was our path. We were so focused. We're like, we believe that our path to freedom is through real estate. And so we dumped all of our cash into real estate. Like every single dollar we made, real estate. We were house rich and cash poor. We had like every single dollar. We didn't have reserves. We didn't have a safety fund. Like every time we put $100,000 in the bank, it went into a piece of real estate. It was hard in the sense that it would have been easier just to buy a house for ourselves instead of buying a house for other people to live in. It was hard for Katie because Katie was like, I want a nice house today. I was like, patient. Like, we're gonna buy a house for other people first, and they're gonna pay us. This house is gonna appreciate, and it's also gonna pay down, and then eventually we're gonna have enough money, then we'll buy ourselves a house. But then we also invested like $400,000 into rehabbing properties, like our own cash. So these were renovations, these were upgrading homes, these were trying to make them cash flow. So we've dumped literally over $1 million of our own cash into real estate because just committed. We would have never started this cleaning business if it wasn't for the real estate, because we never would have done Airbnbs. We never would have had the problems with the cleaning. And so if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have started the cleaning business. We never would have grown this thing to $2 million. And if we would never grown that business to $2 million, like, you guys would not be here today. The only reason you guys are here is because you believe that you guys can do it as well. And so while at the time real estate was our path, it's 100% not our path today. But it took us being committed to that path and going all in to realize what our path is today, and it is cleaning business. And so you guys want to know what else is still here today? You guys know that black pickup you guys rolled up in? Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Right? I wanted to sell. I had that truck for sale so many times, right? I wanted to right that wrong. I wanted to, like, get rid of it. Well, one of my real estate mentors was a client of mine. His name was Mike, and I had breakfast with him one time, and I just was like, Mike, I got to sell this pickup. Like, this pickup doesn't make sense. It costs $100 a month, and I think there's a little bit of equity in it. And he's like, well, what problem do you have? I was like, well, I can't grow my business, right? This is before I met Alex. He's like, I can't grow my business. He's like, well, how's selling the pickup gonna help you grow your business? And I was like, I don't know. I think I just sell it though. He's like, just focus on growing your business. I was like, okay. So I kept the pickup. Today, it is my reminder that looking rich makes you poor. And that's my reminder. It just, every single time I look at it, like, it is now a blessing. I appreciate that pickup so much because that's what it reminds me of. You guys want to know else is still here today? Still have it. Could have paid it off a long time ago. But it's my reminder that I chose to invest in my skills versus playing it safe. And this is the bet that most people aren't willing to make. This is so important. It's common advice, it's responsible advice to pay off the debt. But there's also an opportunity that I saw that I'm gonna choose myself. That debt, when we look at it on a financial statement, it's my reminder to continue to bet on myself. Because the moment you start playing it safe is the moment that you stop taking the risks that are gonna get you to the next level. And so for many years, I was so embarrassed that I never even told Kay that story. The only person that knew that I even had that money was my dad. Of course, he was the only one who knew. Only person still to this day, outside of you guys, the only person who knows that I even got that money. Never told anybody, because I was so embarrassed. And so when you realize that your problems that you're afraid of, that you hold close to the vest that you haven't told anybody, like, those are the things that can become your biggest asset if you're able to see the other side of that story. And yeah, we were able to turn that $30,000 into more than $3 million today, right? You guys are betting on yourselves, you're investing your time, you're investing your money to be here. I just have so much respect for you guys. I understand what it feels like to, like, take that bet and to make that commitment when you don't know. There is no evidence that you can do it yet. And that courage is something that most people don't have. And that courage is what's going to allow you to create evidence that's going to create confidence that you can do this not just one time, but you can do it multiple times. One of my favorite people to read is Robert Kiyosaki. He's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And one quote that he says that I just absolutely love, he's like, there's a lot of truth in that the first million is the hardest to make. Because once you understand how to make the first, the next 10 are easy. Up to this point, we've all started out by building $1 million businesses together. And some of you guys have already done that. And so today we're gonna talk about the second step of this, which is how do we leverage a $1 million business into an actual $1 million